The dog weighed 140 pounds. Muscle.
Jaw.
Teeth that could crush bone like dry bread. They'd kept it chained in the basement of Kim Jang's warehouse for 6 months. Fed it raw meat. Starved it between meals to keep the hunger sharp. Sharpened its instincts until it stopped being a dog entirely and became something else. Something mechanical. Something built only to destroy. They called it Ghost. And tonight, Ghost was meant to kill me. I didn't know that when I walked into the warehouse. I was just a waitress picking up a late catering order. Deborah Litz, 31.
Black.
Working double shifts at 3 different restaurants to keep the lights on, and my daughter fed. The warehouse door had been unlocked. The order slip said to enter through the back. Normal procedure for overnight pickups. Except nothing about this night was normal. I'd barely made it past the loading dock when I heard it. A growl, so deep it vibrated through the concrete floor and into my bones. I turned. Ghost stood 20 feet away. Its eyes were locked on me with an intelligence that animals shouldn't have.
Pure predator. Pure unger.
The chain that usually held it was broken, lying in pieces on the ground. It had been released. On purpose. For me. The men watching from the mezzanine above didn't move. Didn't intervene. Just watched. Like this was entertainment. And somewhere among them, I'd later learn, sat Kim Jang himself. The man who ran half of this city's criminal underworld. The man who'd ordered Ghost released. Ghost took one step forward. Then another. Muscles rippling. Rope of drool hanging from jaws that could end me in seconds. Every person in that room expected me to scream. Every person in that room expected me to run. Every person in that room expected Ghost to do what Ghost always did. I did none of those things. What I did instead made Kim Jang, a man who had never, in 37 years of calculated brutality, been afraid of anything, go completely still. And the room didn't just go quiet. It went dead. 140-pound Pitbull bred to kill is unleashed on a waitress, and she doesn't run? She doesn't scream? She does something so unexpected that an entire room of Mafia operatives freezes? Subscribe right now because what Deborah Litz did in that warehouse is going to change everything, and Kim Jang is about to learn that the most dangerous people are the ones you think you can throw away. My name is Deborah Litz, and I have been underestimated every single day of my life. I'm 31 years old, 5'4", 120 pounds on a good day. Black woman with natural hair she barely has time to maintain, and hands that are always cracked from cleaning solution. I work 3 jobs. Waitress at Golden Dragon, a mid-tier Chinese restaurant downtown. Overnight stock clerk at a grocery store on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And weekend catering assistant for a company called Premier Events, which supplies food to people whose names I'm not supposed to repeat, but whose houses make my apartment look like a storage unit. My daughter is 7. Her name is Lily. She lives with my mother in a 2-bedroom apartment across town because I work nights and my mother works days, and between the two of us, somebody's always watching that little girl. We're barely surviving. But we're surviving. I don't have dreams anymore. Dreams are luxury items. I have goals. Concrete, measurable, achievable goals. Pay rent.
Feed Lily. Keep the lights on.
Save enough to eventually get my GED, and maybe, qualify for something better than minimum wage. That was my world before Ghost. Before Kim Jang. Before the night everything I'd built, small as it was, almost ended in the basement of a warehouse on the east side of the city. Kim Jang was not someone I knew personally, but in this city, everyone knew his name. Korean American. 37. 3rd generation. Inherited the Jang family organization at 22 when his father was killed in a deal gone wrong. Spent 15 years building it into something massive, sophisticated, and almost invisible to law enforcement. The Jang organization ran protection rackets, but also legitimate security firms. Loan sharking, but also actual financial services for immigrants who couldn't get bank accounts. Smuggling, but also legitimate import businesses that employed hundreds. Kim Jang wasn't the loudest criminal in the city. He was the quietest, the most controlled, the most dangerous. People who crossed him didn't end up in hospitals. They ended up nowhere. Just gone. Quietly removed from existence with a precision that suggested Kim Jong viewed violence the way a surgeon viewed scalpels.
Tools.
Necessary.
Precise.
Never wasted. I'd never met him. Never seen him in person. Just knew his reputation the way everyone in the city did. Whispered, respected, feared. Until the night his dog was supposed to eat me alive. The catering order had come in that afternoon through Premier Events standard system. Large order. Industrial warehouse address on the east side. Payment already cleared. Instruction simple. Deliver by 11 p.m. Use the back entrance. Leave the food on the loading dock. I'd done dozens of these overnight deliveries. Some of them to addresses I knew weren't exactly legitimate businesses. You don't work in this city long without learning to read the signs. The security cameras. The reinforced doors. The men who watched you arrive and leave with eyes that measured everything. But the money was good. Premium tip included in the delivery fee. And I needed every dollar. That night I'd loaded the van. 20 trays of appetizers for what the order form called a private business gathering, and drove to the east side. The warehouse was industrial. Corrugated steel walls. Loading dock with a single fluorescent light buzzing overhead. The kind of place that could be anything from a legitimate storage facility to something considerably darker. I'd parked, gathered the first batch of trays, and walked to the back entrance. The door was unlocked, which was unusual. Most of these overnight pickups had a security code or a contact number to call. I pushed it open, stepped inside, and heard the growl. I need to tell you something before I describe what happened next. Something about me that most people don't know. Something that doesn't show up in my job applications or my credit history or any of the paperwork that defines my existence to the systems that govern my life. I grew up in rural Georgia. Not Atlanta proper, outside it. Country roads. Red dirt. The kind of place where dogs weren't pets. They were working animals. Guard dogs. Hunting dogs. Farm dogs. My grandfather raised dogs his entire life. Pitbulls specifically. He was a breeder, a trainer, a man who understood animal behavior the way most people understand breathing, instinctively, completely, without having to think about it. I spent every summer of my childhood at his property, feeding dogs, cleaning kennels, watching him train animals that weighed more than I did. He taught me everything. Dogs aren't complicated, he'd say, scratching behind the ears of a massive pit bull named Thunder who could have torn my arm off without effort. They're honest. More honest than people. They tell you exactly what they are and exactly what they need. You just have to listen. He taught me to read body language.
Posture.
Ear position. The difference between a dog that's aggressive and a dog that's afraid. Between one that's curious and one that's about to attack. He taught me that the most dangerous dogs weren't the ones that growled loudly. They were the ones that went quiet. And he taught me one thing that would save my life 23 years later, in a dark warehouse on the east side of a city I'd moved to because I thought it would give me opportunities my hometown couldn't. He taught me that every dog, no matter how badly broken, no matter how aggressively trained, no matter how deep the damage, still remembers what it was before someone turned it into a weapon. You can break an animal's spirit, Grandpa Roy had said, but you can't kill it entirely. Somewhere underneath all that training and starvation and fear, there's still the creature it was born as. Find that creature. Speak to it. And you can reach anything. I'd been 7 when he told me that. Sitting on a fence post, watching him work with a pit bull that had been rescued from a fighting ring. An animal so damaged, so violent, that the shelter had recommended putting it down. Grandpa Roy had spent 3 months with that dog. Patient.
Calm.
Speaking to something underneath the damage. By the end, that dog slept at his feet every night. So when Ghost rounded the corner of the loading dock, when I saw 140 pounds of starved, trained, weaponized animal fix its eyes on me with pure predatory intent, I wasn't afraid. I was sad. Because I could see it. Under the muscle and the scarred lips and the broken chain and the wild, desperate hunger, I could see what Ghost had been before someone turned it into this. A puppy. Someone's puppy. Before the starvation and the darkness and the cruelty. Ghost was broken. But not all the way. And that's exactly what I saw when it stepped toward me, growling, preparing to attack. The men on the mezzanine above shifted. Someone laughed quietly. Someone else whispered something in Korean. Ghost lunged. And I did something no one in that room expected. I didn't run. I didn't scream. I dropped to my knees, made myself as small as possible, and spoke. Not commands. Not sharp, authoritative words designed to assert dominance. Just a voice.
Soft. Steady.
The same tone my grandfather had used with broken animals for 60 years. Hey, baby. I see you. I know you're hurting. I know they did terrible things to you. But I'm not your enemy. I'm not going to hurt you. And I'm not going to run. Ghost skidded to a stop. 3 feet from me. Close enough that I could feel the heat of its breath. Close enough that one wrong move from either of us would end this. The room went completely silent. Ghost's growl faded. Not all at once. Gradually. Like a motor winding down. Its ears, pinned back, flat against its skull, shifted. Not forward. But not flat anymore. Somewhere in between. I stayed exactly where I was. On my knees. Eyes down.
Non threatening.
Patient. I know they starved you. I whispered. I know they kept you in the dark. I know they made you into something you didn't choose to be. But underneath all of that, you're still you.
Still the dog you were born as.
And that dog is still in there. I can see it. Ghost's body trembled. Muscles twitching beneath the scarred skin. The dog was fighting itself. Instinct screaming attack, something deeper pulling it back. 30 seconds passed. Maybe 40. Then Ghost took one step forward. And lowered its head. Not to attack. Not to bite. To rest its massive skull against my knee. The trembling continued. Ghost whimpered, a small, broken sound that was nothing like the weapon these men had created. I reached out slowly.
Carefully.
And placed my hand on the dog's head. There you are, I whispered. There you are, baby. The room stayed silent for another full minute. Then I heard footsteps on the metal staircase leading down from the mezzanine. Measured. Precise. Each step is calculated. Kim Jang descended into the warehouse floor like a man watching something he couldn't quite explain. He stopped 10 feet away. Looked at Ghost, trembling, head against my knee, making sounds like a frightened puppy. Then looked at me. His expression was unreadable. But his eyes were afraid. Not of me. Not exactly. Of what I represented. Of the fact that his most carefully constructed weapon, his prized tool of intimidation, had just been disarmed by a woman who weighed a third as much and carried no weapon of her own. Who are you? He asked. The waitress, I said. I'm here to deliver your appetizers. Something moved across his face. Not quite a smile. Not quite shock. Something between. Leave the food, he said quietly. And come back tomorrow. We need to talk. I didn't move for 3 full minutes after Kim Jang disappeared back up the stairs. Ghost stayed exactly where it was. Head against my knee. Breathing slowed. Eyes half closed. Not asleep, too alert for that. But calm. Calmer than it had been in probably years. The men on the mezzanine had gone completely quiet. I could feel them watching. Calculating. Reassessing everything they thought they knew about how their boss's most feared weapon had just been neutralized by a woman in a Premier Events polo shirt. Finally, one of them descended. Young. Korean. Nervous in a way that told me he'd drawn the short straw for this particular errand. Mr. Kim says to leave the food on the loading dock. He'll have someone retrieve it. The young man's eyes kept darting to Ghost. To me. Back to Ghost. Like he was trying to solve an equation that didn't add up. Okay, I said quietly. I didn't move quickly. Didn't want to startle Ghost. He also says, the young man swallowed, to come back tomorrow.
Same time.
He wants to meet with you. Meet with me? Why? He didn't say. He just, another nervous glance at Ghost. He said to come alone. And he said, a pause, to bring whatever you brought tonight. I brought appetizers and a thermos of coffee. The young man stared at me like I'd spoken in a foreign language. I'll tell him that. He retreated back up the stairs quickly.
Smart man.
I stayed on the ground for another minute. Ghost hadn't moved. Hadn't pulled away. The trembling had stopped. The dog's breathing was even now. Peaceful almost. I have to go, baby, I whispered. But I'm coming back. I promise. I stood slowly. Ghost lifted its head. Watched me with eyes that were no longer the flat, predatory stare I'd seen when it charged. These eyes were aware. Present. Confused, maybe. Like it was trying to understand what had just happened. What had shifted inside it. I reached down one more time. Scratched behind its ear. The same spot my grandfather had always found on Thunder. Ghost leaned into my hand. A small, instinctive movement. The kind of thing a dog does when it remembers what touch is supposed to feel like. I'll be back, I said. I left the appetizers on the loading dock. Drove home in silence, my hands shaking on the steering wheel, my mind racing through 17 different versions of what the hell had just happened. I didn't sleep that night. Lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying the moment Ghost had charged. The weight of those eyes. The heat of its breath. The instant where everything could have gone wrong. And the moment it didn't. My grandfather's voice in my memory. Find the creature it was born as. Speak to it. I'd done that. Instinctively. Without thinking. Just recognized something in Ghost that the men who'd trained it had spent years trying to kill. The question was, why had they tried to kill me? I was a waitress delivering food. Nobody cares about a waitress. Unless I'd seen something I wasn't supposed to see. I thought back. Weeks of delivering food to various locations. Picking up orders from restaurants and corporate offices and sometimes, addresses that didn't quite feel like restaurants or corporate offices. 3 weeks ago, a delivery to a building on 5th Street. Supposed to be a private dinner for a business group. When I'd arrived to drop off the food, the door had been open. I'd glimpsed inside, just for a second. A room full of men. Money on a table. And in the corner, visible through a glass partition, dogs. Multiple dogs. In cages. With wounds on their faces and bodies. I'd backed away. Left the food. Driven home. And I'd told Rita. Rita Okafor ran an animal rescue organization called Second Chance. I'd been volunteering with her for 2 years, spending my rare free hours helping document animal cruelty cases. It was the one thing outside of Lily that made me feel like my existence mattered beyond survival. Rita had taken my report seriously. Started investigating. Cross-referenced the address with known criminal organizations. And somehow, somewhere in that chain, my name had become visible to people who wanted me invisible. The dog hadn't been random. It had been a message. You saw something. Now you're going to disappear. Except I hadn't disappeared. And tomorrow night, Kim Jang wanted to meet with me. Either he was going to finish the job Ghost didn't complete, or something else entirely was about to happen. I almost didn't go back. Spent the entire next day debating. Called Rita, explained the situation in vague terms, didn't want to give her specifics that might put her in danger. Someone tried to scare me off last night, I said. Something connected to the case we're building. How scared should you be? Past scared. Into the territory where rational people disappear. Are you a rational person, Pam? Deborah. Are you a rational person, Deborah? Sometimes. Then be irrational tonight. Do the thing rational people wouldn't do. Because rational people disappear and irrational people change things. Rita had a way of making the dangerous option sound like the obvious one. So, I went back. Same warehouse. Same time. 11 p.m. This time the door was open. Lights on inside. Actual lights, not the single buzzing fluorescent from the previous night. The loading dock had been cleared. The trays from last night were gone. A man I didn't recognize waited inside. Older.
Korean.
Impeccably dressed in a way that seemed absurd for a warehouse at 11 p.m. Ms. Litz. Mr. Kim is waiting. This way. He led me through the warehouse, past the loading dock, past the area where Ghost had charged me. I noticed the dog wasn't visible anywhere. The broken chain had been replaced. We climbed the metal staircase to the mezzanine. Then through a door I hadn't noticed before, it led to a corridor, then to an elevator, which took us up 3 floors to what appeared to be a penthouse office hidden above the warehouse. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Clean, modern furniture. Art on the walls that looked expensive enough to make me nervous about breathing near it. A bar with bottles I couldn't pronounce. Kim Jang sat behind a desk. Not a massive, imposing desk. A clean, functional one. Like a man who worked here regularly. Who spent real time in this space. He stood when I entered. Studied me the same way he had last night, measuring. Calculating. Ms. Litz. Thank you for coming. You asked me to. I did. Please sit.
I sat.
The chair was more comfortable than anything I owned. I tried not to think about that. Can I get you something? Water? Coffee. Water. Please. His assistant, the older man, poured me a glass from a crystal pitcher. I wrapped both hands around it, partly because I was thirsty, partly because my hands wanted something to hold on to. Kim Jang sat across from me, not behind the desk, in a chair facing mine. Equal footing, deliberate choice. I'll be direct, he said. Last night was a test. I figured that out. You weren't supposed to pass it. Ghost wasn't supposed to be beatable.
No.
Ghost has never been beatable. In 6 years, no one has ever gotten close to that animal without injury. He's been trained specifically to attack, specifically to kill. He's never shown anything resembling. Kim Jang paused. Searched for the word. Restraint. Ghost isn't a machine. He's a living thing that someone broke. I just showed him he didn't have to stay broken.
How?
I listened to him. Dogs don't talk. Everything talks. You just have to know how to listen. I held his gaze. Mr. Kim, why did you release Ghost on me? What did I do? He was quiet for a moment. Then, 3 weeks ago, you delivered food to a location connected to my organization. You saw something you shouldn't have seen.
Dogs.
A fighting operation. I kept my expression neutral. And that information reached people who could damage me.
I don't know how.
I don't know who you told, but the connection was made, and you became a liability. So, you tried to kill me with a dog. Ghost was supposed to be clean.
Quick.
No evidence. No witnesses beyond my own people. He tilted his head. Instead, you made my most lethal weapon kneel at your feet. In front of everyone. Does that scare you? The question surprised him. I could tell by the way his jaw tightened, a micro-expression, barely visible, but there. It concerns me, he said carefully. That's not what I asked. He looked at me for a long time. Really looked. The way people don't bother looking at waitresses. Yes, he said finally. It terrifies me. The honesty was unexpected. Kim Jang, from everything I'd heard, didn't admit fear. Didn't show vulnerability. The fact that he was sitting here, telling me the truth. Either he was genuinely shaken by what I'd done, or this was another test. So what happens now? I asked. You can't let me walk out of here knowing what I know. About the dogs. About your organization trying to kill me. That's not a loose end you can ignore.
No.
It's not. Then you have 2 options. You try to get rid of me again, which, given how last night went, might not work as smoothly as you'd like. I set down my water glass. Or you figure out why I'm different from everyone else who's ever walked into your world. And you use that. Use you. Use what I represent. Someone you can't control. Someone you can't scare. Someone who sees through the weapons and the fear and the calculated brutality and just, I looked at him directly, sees the person underneath. There's no person underneath. I'm exactly what I appear to be.
No.
You're not. Ghost showed me that. Ghost is a dog. Ghost is a mirror. You train that animal to be a weapon because that's what someone trained you to be. And somewhere underneath all that conditioning, you're just as broken as Ghost was. Just as hungry. Just as desperate to be seen as something other than what you've been made into. The silence that followed was the longest of my life. Kim Jang's expression didn't change. Not exactly. But something shifted behind his eyes. Something deep and old and carefully guarded. You're either the bravest person I've ever met, he said quietly, or the most foolish. Probably both. My mother would agree. Something that might have been a smile flickered across his face. Gone before I could be sure. Come back tomorrow, he said. Bring Ghost with you. Excuse me?
Ghost.
I want you to work with Ghost. Formally. Under my supervision. He stood. Signaled the meeting was over. You reached something in that animal that 6 years of professional training couldn't touch. I want to understand how. And I want to see if you can do it again. With Ghost specifically? With Ghost. And eventually with others. I stood. Walked toward the door. Stopped and turned back. Mr. Kim? The dogs. The fighting ring. Whatever's running through your organization, I need to know if you're involved. I'm not. Then you need to find out who is. Because if I can reach Ghost, I can reach any of them. And if someone in your organization is hurting animals for profit, my voice hardened in a way I rarely let it. I will burn them to the ground. With or without your help. I left before he could respond. Rode the elevator down. Walked through the warehouse. Past the spot where Ghost had almost killed me. And in the corner, chained to a reinforced post with a new, unbreakable chain, Ghost lifted its head. Watched me leave. I stopped. Held the dog's gaze. Tomorrow, baby, I whispered. I'll be back tomorrow. Ghost's tail moved. Just once. Barely a twitch. But it was there. Kim Jang just admitted he's terrified of a waitress. And he's letting her work with Ghost, his most dangerous weapon. And she just threatened to burn down his entire operation if she finds out who's running dogfights through his organization. Subscribe because the next chapter is when Deborah starts digging, and what she finds is going to make Ghost look like a puppy compared to what's happening inside this organization. Working with Ghost was like peeling back layers of scar tissue. Every day for the first week, I came to the warehouse at 10 p.m. same time. Same entrance. Same routine so Ghost could learn to expect me. Predictability is safety for traumatized animals. I didn't try to force anything. Didn't use commands. Didn't assert dominance the way professional trainers do with aggressive dogs. I just existed near Ghost.
Talk to it.
Fed it by hand, slowly, carefully, letting it come to me instead of approaching it. The first 3 days, Ghost wouldn't eat from my hand. Too suspicious. Too conditioned to expect that contact meant pain. On day 4, it took a piece of raw chicken directly from my fingers. On day 5, it let me touch its ear again. On day 6, it fell asleep with its head on my lap. Kim Jang watched all of this from the mezzanine. Never came down. Never interfered. Just observed with an intensity that I could feel even from 20 feet below. On day 7, he descended the stairs and sat across from me on the concrete floor. Ghost immediately growled, a warning directed at him. At its own master. It doesn't trust me, Kim Jang said. No emotion in his voice. Just an observation. Why would it? You're the one who kept it chained in the dark and starved it. That was necessary for the training. That was cruelty. Necessary cruelty, maybe, for what you wanted Ghost to become. But cruelty is still cruelty. I scratched behind Ghost's ear. The dog leaned into my hand. Ghost has never been shown kindness. Never been treated as anything other than a tool. So, of course, it doesn't trust you. You've never given it a reason to. Can it learn to trust? Anything can learn. If you're patient, if you're consistent, if you give it a reason to believe that trust won't be punished. Kim Jang watched Ghost lean against me. Watched the animal's eyes, soft now, not the flat predatory stare it wore for everyone else, close in something approaching contentment. How did you learn this? He asked. You're a waitress. I'm a waitress who grew up with a grandfather who understood animals better than most people understand other people. Roy Litt spent 60 years rescuing broken dogs. Pitbulls especially. Animals that everyone else had given up on. And he taught you. He taught me that nothing is beyond reaching. That underneath every layer of damage, every scar, every broken behavior, there's still the living thing that existed before the damage. And that living thing deserves to be seen. Kim Jang was quiet for a long moment. Then, very quietly, what if the damage goes all the way down? The question wasn't about Ghost. I looked at him, really looked, and saw something I hadn't noticed before in the controlled, calculated exterior.
A boy.
A boy who'd been damaged too. Who'd been turned into something he didn't choose. Who'd been made into a weapon just like Ghost had. Then you start at the bottom, I said. And you work your way up. One layer at a time. One day at a time. He looked away, jaw tight. The emotion carefully controlled, locked back into the box where he kept everything that might make him seem human. But for just that second I'd seen it. The crack in the ice. On day 9, Ghost walked voluntarily to Kim Jang and sniffed his hand. Kim Jang's expression didn't change. But his hand, the one Ghost had sniffed, trembled. That's a start, I said. It's just a sniff. It's trust. The beginning of trust.
Ghost chose to approach you.
That's significant. Kim Jang looked at his trembling hand like it belonged to someone else. Like he didn't know what to do with an emotion he'd spent 37 years refusing to feel. This is dangerous, he said, letting the dog get close. Everything worth having is dangerous. The alternative is isolation. And isolation. I nodded at Ghost, who had retreated back to my side. Look at what isolation does. He left without another word. But the next night, when I arrived, there was a blanket on the floor where Ghost slept.
Clean, thick, warm.
Kim Jang had put it there himself. I knew because none of his people would have thought to. It was a small thing. The smallest possible gesture. But it was a start. Meanwhile, I was doing what I'd been doing for 2 years. Documenting. Rita had taught me how. Photos.
Dates.
Locations. Financial connections. Building a case brick by brick, invisible brick by invisible brick, until the evidence was too substantial to ignore. The dog-fighting ring connected to the Jang organization was massive. Larger than Rita had initially estimated. Operating out of 3 locations across the city, generating millions in illegal gambling revenue. And it was run by James Lee, Kim Jang's lieutenant. I discovered this accidentally. One night, after my session with Ghost, I'd stayed late to clean up old habits from my waitressing life. While tidying the mezzanine office, I'd found a tablet left unlocked on a desk. Financial records, betting records, photos of dogs in fighting conditions. All under James Lee's name. I photographed everything before the screen locked. The next night, I confronted Kim Jang. James Lee is running a dogfighting operation through your organization. Kim Jang's expression didn't change. I know. You know. I suspected. Couldn't prove it. James is careful.
He looked at me.
How did you find out? I found his records. On a tablet in the mezzanine office. You went through my people's private. It was unlocked. And it contained evidence of massive animal cruelty being conducted under your organization's name. I kept my voice level. Controlled. The way I'd learned to when Rita and I worked cases. Mr. Kim, this isn't a minor issue. Dogfighting is a federal crime. If law enforcement connects it to your organization, I'm aware of the consequences. Then why hasn't James been stopped? Kim Jang's jaw tightened. Because James Lee has connections I don't fully understand yet. Removing him isn't simple. Nothing worth doing is simple. You sound like someone who's done this before. I hesitated, then decided, trust him or don't. There was no middle ground anymore. I work with an animal rescue organization, I said. Have for 2 years. We document animal cruelty operations, build cases, hand them to authorities. You're an informant. I'm an advocate. There's a difference. Not to people in my world. Then maybe your world needs to change. Kim Jang studied me for a long time, the same way he studied Ghost when it first leaned against me, trying to understand something that didn't fit his model of how the world worked. You've been investigating while working with Ghost, he said. Not a question. Yes. And you told me about James because you said you'd destroy anyone hurting animals in your organization. I'm giving you the chance to keep that promise. And if I don't, then I give the evidence to authorities myself, and your entire organization goes down with it. That's not a threat. That's a promise.
Yes.
It is. The silence stretched. Kim Jang's expression was unreadable. The mask he wore for the world, the one I was slowly learning to see through. Then show me everything you have, and help me take James down. On one condition. Name it. Ghost stays with me. Permanently. Transferred to my care. No more chains. No more weapons. Ghost gets to be a dog. Kim Jang looked at me like I'd asked for something far more valuable than an animal. Maybe I had. Done, he said. Taking James Lee down wasn't simple. He was Kim Jang's second in command. His most trusted operative. The man who ran day-to-day operations while Kim Jang handled strategy and long-term planning. Removing him meant dismantling half the organization's operational structure and rebuilding it without him. Kim Jang didn't want to do it publicly. Didn't want to draw attention. So we built the case quietly, me documenting, Kim Jang verifying, Rita providing legal guidance from the rescue organization side. What we discovered was worse than expected. James Lee hadn't just been running a dog-fighting ring. He'd been running an entire shadow operation within the Jang organization. Skimming money. Building his own power base. Using the dog-fighting profits to buy loyalty from operatives who should have been loyal to Kim Jang. The dog-fighting was profitable, but it was also leverage. Animals that James had trained and sold, some of them ended up in homes of politicians, business people, anyone James wanted leverage over.
Dogs as gifts.
Dogs as threats. The same way weapons were traded. He's been using animals as currency, I said, reviewing the evidence in Kim Jang's penthouse office. Ghost was with me, always with me now, transferred into my care as promised. The dog lay at my feet, calm and watchful, a different creature from the weapon it had been. James views everything as currency, Kim Jang said.
People.
Animals. Relationships. All transactions. Is that how you see the world?
He looked at me.
Something flickered in his expression. It used to be. What changed?
You. Ghost.
The fact that someone walked into a room with a killing machine and responded with kindness. He said the word like it tasted foreign. I didn't have a framework for that. Couldn't calculate the value of it. And that, he shook his head. That disturbed me more than anything James has done. Kindness disturbs you? Kindness is unpredictable. I can't control it.
Can't anticipate it.
Can't account for it in my calculations. He looked at Ghost. Ghost can't be calculated anymore either. The animal that used to be entirely predictable, attack, destroy, obey, is now something I can't fully understand. Because you changed it. And I can't undo that change. You don't want to undo it.
No.
I don't. That's what disturbs me most. The confrontation with James happened on a Tuesday. Kim Jang called a meeting. Senior leadership only. James included. I wasn't there for the meeting itself. Too visible, too obvious. But I was in the building. On the floor below, with Ghost monitoring through a security feed Kim Jang had set up for me. The meeting was brief. Kim Jang laid out the evidence. Calmly. Precisely. The way he did everything. James's response was immediate. You can't prove any of this. Those records are fabricated. That tablet was planted. By whom? Kim Jang's voice was level. Controlled. The tablet was found on your desk. The financial records match your access codes. The betting records show deposits into accounts registered in your name. This is a setup. Someone's trying to turn you against me. Someone did turn me against you, James. Someone showed me exactly what you've been doing. And I chose to believe the evidence because the evidence is undeniable. The meeting ended with James being escorted out by security. What happened next wasn't on the feed. James Lee just got exposed for running a massive dog-fighting empire inside his own boss's organization. And Kim Jang is starting to feel things because of a waitress and a pitbull. Subscribe because what James does after being fired is going to escalate this entire story into territory nobody saw coming. The revenge is coming. And it's not going to be pretty. James Lee didn't disappear quietly. 3 days after his removal, Rita called me in a panic. Someone hit our shelter. Broken overnight. Destroyed everything, files, evidence, computers. All of it. The cases we've been building.
Gone.
Physical records destroyed. Digital backups. We're checking, but Rita's voice was tight with fury. Pam, Deborah, this wasn't random. Someone knew exactly what we had. Knew where we kept it. Knew how to make it look like a burglary while being surgical about what they targeted.
James.
It had to be James. Getting back at me for helping bring him down. I told Kim Jang immediately. His response was 2 phone calls. Within an hour, he had information. James hit your shelter. And he's planning something bigger. Kim Jang's expression was granite. He's going to come after Lily. The world stopped. What? He knows about your daughter. Your mother. Your entire life outside this building. He's been watching you for weeks, before the confrontation, before I even knew about the dog fighting. James has been surveillance on you since you first delivered food to my warehouse. He's going after my 7-year-old daughter? He's trying to send you a message. Same message I tried to send with Ghost. Except James doesn't have your grandfather's subtlety.
Kim Vang-stud.
We need to move your family.
Now.
I was already calling Grace. Mama, I need you to take Lily and go to Aunt Sandra's in Savannah. Tonight.
What?
Deborah, it's 11 o'clock at night. Mama, please. I'll explain later. Just take Lily and go. Don't tell anyone where you're going. Grace heard something in my voice my mother always could. Are you in trouble? I'm handling it, but I need Lily safe first. Then she's safe. We're leaving in 20 minutes. I hung up. My hands were shaking. Kim Jang watched me, then did something unexpected. He crossed the room, put his hand on my shoulder. A brief, awkward gesture, like he wasn't sure how physical comfort worked, like he was trying to remember. She'll be safe, he said. I have people in Savannah. Your family will be watched. You have people everywhere.
Yes.
And right now, all of them are protecting your family. He paused. Deborah, James is dangerous. But he's not smarter than me. He's just angry. And angry people make mistakes. What kind of mistakes? The kind that expose them. The kind that make them visible. The kind we can use. You want to use his anger against him. I want to destroy him.
Completely.
Permanently. The way he tried to destroy you and everything you love. Kim Jang's voice was cold. Controlled. The Ice King that everyone feared. But I need your help. Because you understand something I don't. What? How to reach things that are broken. How to find the living thing underneath the damage. You think James is reachable?
No.
I think James is too far gone. But I think the people working for him might not be. And those are the people we need to turn against him. Over the next week, Ghost and I did what we'd been doing, but with new purpose. James Lee had been running a network of operatives. Some are loyal to him genuinely. Others were loyal because they feared him. The ones who feared him were reachable. They just needed someone to show them another way. I spent nights in the warehouse, not just with Ghost but with people. James's former subordinates. Men and women who'd been part of his operation, some knowingly, some not. I didn't threaten them, didn't bargain, didn't offer deals. I just listened, heard their stories, their regrets, their fear. And one by one, they started talking, started providing evidence, started choosing a different path. Ghost was part of it. Not directly, the dog couldn't interview people. But its presence changed things. A 140-pound Pitbull that responded to kindness, that leaned against strangers with a gentle curiosity, that was proof, living, breathing proof, that even the most damaged things could heal. People saw Ghost and understood, instinctively, that change was possible. "You're building an army," Kim Jang observed one night. "Not with weapons. With compassion. I'm building a community. People who've been shown they have value beyond what they can produce or destroy." That's the same thing. Not even close. On the 11th day after James's removal, Kim Jang told me the truth about Ghost. We were in the penthouse office.
Late.
Ghost asleep between us on the floor, its massive body rising and falling with each breath. A picture of peace that would have been impossible 2 weeks earlier. Ghost wasn't just a weapon I created, Kim Jang said.
He wasn't looking at me.
Looking at the dog. At something beyond it. Ghost was me. A version of me. What I became when my father was finished with me. What do you mean? My mother died when I was 8. My father, he stopped.
Started again.
My father decided I needed to be hardened, prepared for the world he lived in. So he isolated me, removed all softness, all emotions, trained me the same way Ghost was trained. Starvation of connection, punishment for vulnerability, reward only for obedience and aggression.
Kim Vang.
By the time I was 15, I hadn't cried in 7 years. Hadn't felt anything beyond calculation and survival. I was exactly what he'd made me. He looked at Ghost. When I inherited the organization, I needed a symbol. Something that represented what I was, what I'd become. Ghost was a puppy I found at a shelter. Perfect specimen. Healthy. Strong. And I turned it into exactly what my father turned me into. You replicated your own trauma. Unconsciously. At first. He looked at me. Until you showed me what I'd done. Until you reached Ghost the way no one had reached me. Has anyone tried to reach you? The way I reached Ghost. You're the first. The silence between us was enormous. Filled with everything neither of us knew how to say. Ghost stirred. Lifted its head. Looked between us with those new eyes. The aware, curious eyes that had replaced the flat, predatory stare. Then the dog stood. Walked to Kim Jang. And, with a gentleness that broke my heart, pressed its head against his chest. Kim Jang's hand came up. Slowly.
Carefully.
Like he was afraid the gesture would be punished. He touched Ghost's head. Ghost leaned in. And Kim Jang, the Ice King, the man who hadn't shown emotion in 29 years, closed his eyes. I looked away. Gave him the privacy of that moment. Watched Ghost instead. Watched this broken animal healing a broken man. The way broken things sometimes recognize each other and choose, against all odds, to stay close. James Lee made his final move on a Friday. He came to the warehouse. Alone. Which should have been suspicious. James never went anywhere alone. But the guards let him through because technically, no one had told them he was banned from the premises. Kim Jang had removed him from leadership, but the security protocols hadn't been updated fast enough. I was in the warehouse with Ghost when James arrived. 10 p.m. regular session. I heard him before I saw him. Footsteps on the mezzanine. Confidence. Deliberate. So this is where the magic happens. I turned. Ghost, immediately sensing the threat, rose to its feet. A low growl vibrated through its chest. James descended the stairs slowly, hands in his pockets, smiling the way people smile when they think they've already won. Relax, dog. He looked at Ghost with contempt. You're not on the clock anymore. What do you want, James? I want to see the miracle worker up close. The waitress who tamed the beast. He looked around the warehouse. And I want to talk about what happens next. There's nothing to talk about. You've been removed. The evidence against you is being compiled. It's over. Nothing's over until I say it is. His hand came out of his pocket.
Gun. Pointed at me, not Ghost.
Kim Jang's sentiment for you has made him sloppy. He's so busy learning to feel things that he forgot to handle me properly. Ghost growled louder, stepped between me and James. Call off the dog. Ghost isn't mine to call off. Ghost makes its own choices now. Then I'll shoot it. And then Kim Jang will kill you. You know that. James's smile faltered. Just for a second. Kim Jang won't have the chance. Because after I finish here, I'm finishing him. He raised the gun higher. Step aside. Let me do what needs to be done. Ghost didn't move. The dog was completely still. Not trembling. Not growling anymore. Just standing. Solid. Immovable. Between me and the gun. The same way Ghost had stood when it charged me that first night. But different now. Not attacking. Protecting. James hesitated. Something in Ghost's stillness, the absolute, unshakable calm of an animal that had decided exactly what it was doing, made him pause. Move, James said. Ghost didn't move. I said move. The warehouse door exploded inward. Kim Jang's security team. 6 men. Armed. Precise. Kim Jang himself behind them. Not armed.
Didn't need to be.
James, Kim Jang said. His voice was the coldest thing in the room. Put the gun down. This isn't your call anymore. It's always been my call. You were never in charge, James. You were always just useful. Kim Jang stepped forward. Put the gun down. Or Ghost will remind you why weapons of mass destruction aren't always the most effective option. Ghost turned its head toward James. Made eye contact. The dog's expression was calm, patient, like it had all the time in the world. James looked at the dog, at Kim Jang, at the 6 armed men, at me, standing behind Ghost with my hand on the dog's flank, completely steady. He put the gun down. The security team took him. Professional.
Quick.
No drama. Kim Jang watched James being led away, then turned to me. Are you okay?
I've fine.
Ghost handled it. Kim Jang looked at Ghost. At the dog that had just protected me without hesitation. Without command. Without anything except its own choice. Ghost handled it, he repeated. Ghost chose to protect me. The same way it chose to let you touch it. The same way it chose to heal. I walked to Kim Jang. Stood in front of him. That's what happens when you give a living thing the choice to be something other than what fear made it. Kim Jang looked at me. At Ghost. At the broken chain that had held the dog for 6 years, now lying on the floor where it had been discarded weeks ago. What do you want? He asked. From me.
From this.
What do you actually want, Deborah? I want James prosecuted. The dog fighting ring shut down permanently. Every animal in his operation was rescued and rehabilitated. Done. I want Ghost to live with me. Permanently. As a pet. A family member. Not a weapon. Already done. And I hesitated. I want you to stop being ice. I want you to actually feel things. Even when it's terrifying. Even when it makes you vulnerable. Because Kim Jang, I held his gaze. Being human isn't a weakness. It's the bravest thing you can do. You're asking me to be something I don't know how to be. Ghost didn't know how to be anything other than a weapon. And look at it now. We looked at Ghost together. The dog had settled back down, resting, peaceful, completely at ease in a world that had spent 6 years teaching it nothing but violence. One day at a time, I said. One layer at a time. Same as Ghost.
Kim vanknoddet.
Once.
Small.
It wasn't a promise. It was something quieter than that. An acknowledgement. An opening. A start. 6 months later, Ghost was a different animal. Not just calmer. Not just gentler. Genuinely healed. Or as close to healed as 6 years of damage would allow. The scars on its body would never fully fade. But the scars inside, the ones that made it attack, made it fear, made it destroy, those were healing.
Day by day.
Layer by layer. The ghost lived with me now. My apartment, slightly bigger than before, courtesy of the financial arrangement Kim Jang had quietly established after I'd told him I was still working 3 jobs. You can't keep paying my rent, I'd told him. I'm not paying your rent. I'm compensating you for animal rehabilitation services rendered to my organization. That's creative accounting. That's business. Lily loved Ghost. The first time she met the dog, she'd walked right up, put her small hand on Ghost's massive head, and said, "You're sad, aren't you? But you don't have to be anymore." Ghost had looked at my 7-year-old daughter with an expression that could only be described as devotion. They were inseparable now. Ghost followed Lily everywhere, protected her, slept at the foot of her bed. The weapon that was meant to kill me had become my daughter's guardian. If that isn't a story worth telling, I don't know what is. Rita's organization, Second Chance, had rebuilt after James's attack on their shelter. Better than before, actually. The publicity around James Lee's prosecution had brought donations, volunteers, attention. James was facing federal charges. Dog fighting, racketeering, conspiracy, multiple counts. He wasn't getting out. The evidence I'd gathered, along with what Kim Jang's organization had provided, had been enough to dismantle the entire fighting ring. 47 dogs were rescued from 3 locations. All of them are in rehabilitation now. Some at Second Chance. Some at other facilities across the country. Rita had asked me to lead the rehabilitation program. "You're the best at this," she said. "You've always been the best at this." Ghost proved it to the whole world. Ghost proved it to Kim Jang. I don't think the whole world knows about a waitress and a Pitbull in a warehouse. They will, when we publish the story.
Rita.
Deborah, this story needs to be told. Not just about the dog fighting ring. About what you did.
About Ghost.
About how one woman with a gift for reaching broken things changed the trajectory of a criminal organization.
Rita smiled.
It's the kind of story that changes how people see the world. I wasn't sure about that, but I agreed to think about it. Kim Jang and I didn't have a traditional relationship. Didn't go on dates. Didn't hold hands in public. Didn't fit any of the categories that society expected for 2 people who'd changed each other's lives. What we had was something else. He came to my apartment on Sundays. Sat on the floor with Ghost and Lily. Let my daughter climb on him like he was in a jungle gym. Ate dinner with my mother, who watched him with sharp eyes that missed nothing and said nothing. "He's different," Grace said to me one Sunday while Kim Jang was reading to Lily in the living room. Ghost stretched across both their laps like an oversized blanket. Different how?
Softer.
Like someone peeled back a layer that was supposed to be permanent. Grace looked at me sideways. "That was you, wasn't it?" "That was Ghost, mostly. Ghost was the tool. You were the hand that picked it up and used it right." Grace touched my face. "Your grandfather would be proud." "I know, Mama." Kim Jang asked me once, late at night, after Lily was asleep and Ghost was dreaming at our feet and the apartment was quiet in the way it only gets when a family is at rest. "Do you trust me?" "Yes." "You shouldn't." "Probably not. But I do." "Why?" I looked at Ghost. At the rise and fall of its breathing. At the peaceful expression on a face that had been built for war. Because you chose differently. When it mattered. When James came with a gun, and you could have let it happen, could have solved the problem the old way, the ice way, you chose to protect me instead. You chose the human option. That wasn't easy. The best choices never are. He was quiet for a while. Then, What happens next? Next, we keep going. One day at a time. You keep learning how to feel things. I keep taking care of broken animals. And Ghost, I reached down and scratched behind its ear. The dog sighed in its sleep. Ghost keeps proving that nothing is beyond healing. And us too. One day at a time.
Kim Vank nodded.
Reached out and placed his hand over mine. A small gesture. Awkward, still like he was practicing. But real. Ghost's tail thumped against the floor once.
Twice.
Even in sleep, the dog knew something had shifted. Something fundamental. Something that couldn't be undone. Not in this room. Not in this family. Not in the world that had spent 6 years trying to turn a living thing into a weapon. Because some things are stronger than fear. Some things survive the breaking. And some things, given half a chance, given one person brave enough to see them, choose to heal. The end. They bred Ghost to destroy. They starved it. Chained it. Trained it to kill. They turned a living thing into a weapon because weapons are useful and living things are not. And then a waitress walked into a warehouse and did the one thing no one expected. She saw Ghost for what it actually was. Not a weapon. Not a monster. Not a tool. A creature. Broken. Hungry. Desperate to be something other than what fear had made it. And she reached it. Not with force. Not with dominance. Not with any of the tools that had been used against Ghost for 6 years. With kindness. With patience. With a radical, terrifying act of believing that something damaged could still be loved. Ghost healed.
Kim Vank healet.
And a waitress who'd spent her entire life being invisible discovered that the most powerful thing in the world isn't strength or control or fear. It's the choice to see someone really see them when everyone else has given up.
I'm Debre Litz.
I'm a waitress. A mother. A woman who talks to dogs. And I proved that the most dangerous thing you can be isn't violent. It's compassionate. Because compassion reaches places violence never can. A waitress tamed a killer Pitbull, brought down a dog-fighting empire, and made a Korean Mafia boss learn how to feel things, all while raising a 7-year-old and working triple shifts. Deborah Litz is officially the most underestimated protagonist ever written. And Ghost going from a weapon of mass destruction to sleeping at a little girl's feet?
I'm Destroyed.
Subscribe because next week's story is about a woman who discovers her boyfriend's business trips are actually visits to a secret second family, and she decides to unite all the families for the most devastating group chat in history. It's going to be legendary.
See you there.
Real talk. Was Deborah right to trust Kim Jang after he literally sent a killer dog after her? Or should she have stayed as far away as possible? A, yes, he showed her who he really was underneath the ice, and that was enough. B, no. Trust a man who tried to kill you? Absolutely not. Walk away. C, both. She was brave and stupid, and it worked out, but it easily could have destroyed her. D, none of this matters because Ghost sleeping at Lily's feet after being bred to kill is the most beautiful character arc ever written. Drop your answer below. And more importantly, do you think Kim Jang can actually change? Or will the ice always come back when things get hard? Also, Ghost choosing to protect Deborah from James without any command, best moment in the entire story, or did the scene where Ghost first rested its head on Deborah's knee hit harder? Sound off in the comments. This story made me believe that the most powerful force in the world isn't fear or control. It's someone brave enough to choose kindness when everyone around them chose violence. What about you?